Welcome to the Howell Business Beat. We're joined today by my celebrity co-host, Kevin Suboski, founder of the Livingston Entrepreneurship Academy and owner of the Fastest Route. Alongside him, we have our very special guest, Amy Zander with Zeedia Media, known as the mobstress of marketing. I'm Janelle Smith, president of the Howell Area Chamber of Commerce. Today, we're going to be talking about the story of entrepreneurship. Obviously, we got to drop some marketing tidbits in there, but it's going to be a fun conversation. And I'm excited to have you guys tune in and listen. And at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Amy. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Janelle. Well, I have started my entrepreneur journey probably in high school. I've owned 5 different businesses.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I started a little house cleaning business in high school to help pay for college. And then
what was it called?
That's really crazy because I am a marketing person, so I don't know that I even had a name.
Oh.
Yeah,
I had to ask because I did the same thing when I was in high school, just out of high school, and it was we called ourselves 2 ladies in a vacuum.
I love that. Yeah, and then in college, I just had a couple side hustles. I was like editing, people's papers and different things like that, kind of underground. And then my husband and I ran a hunting lodge in northern Michigan when we were first together. We didn't own it, but we were contracted to run it. And then we tried to start a brewery in 2008, and that was the worst time in the world to try to start a business. So that we learned a lot of lessons there.
And that's kind of, I feel like, on the early side of the scene of breweries, right?
Yeah, we would have been the first brewery in Lansing. There's a lot, there's several now. But we learned a lot. We lost a lot of money, and we also learned that maybe as a couple, we don't need to work together. So that's good.
Yeah.
That wasn't why it failed, but that was just a lesson we learned. And then I owned a coffee shop bakery for a couple years, decided I really didn't like that. I was able to sell it, and that was way before COVID. So that was good. And then from there, I started marketing because I realized in all the things that I was doing, I liked the marketing the best. So that's kind of my entrepreneur journey. And then from there, I just learned how to be a business owner, which isn't easy.
I don't think there's really anything easy about entrepreneurship in general or business in general. But I think that that's also speaks to kind of that entrepreneurship DNA, right?
Right.
Like of just, it's that grit and that desire and that passion to, I think serve, right? Yeah. In whatever your mission is. I'm curious why marketing called to you. Out of all of the things you did, why did marketing call to you?
Yeah, so I have a degree in journalism, and writing has always been my first passion. I've always been a writer, and I liked to talk about my businesses that I had. What was interesting for the hunting lodge, we didn't market at all because it was a private lodge. So people really didn't want anyone to know it was there. It was just private. But when I had my cafe, I created the website, and I was out, talking to people and whatever. And I really didn't want to be behind the counter making espressos, which is what I had to do. And I met somebody, a regular, who started coming into my cafe all the time. His name was also Kevin. And he became my mentor, and he started talking to me about marketing and branding and all this kind of stuff because he was interested in what I was doing for those things for my cafe. And I just really fell in love with the concept and the things that he taught me. And when I told him I was selling my cafe, he was like, well, what are you going to do now? And I said, I want to do what you're doing. And so he took me in under his wing and he became my mentor, and he taught me brand archetype strategy that I use now. And we started a podcast together, and he gave me my first few clients, and he really believed in me. Nice. And so that was, he changed my life.
That's amazing. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful message when it relates to mentorship. But I also, I heard that I was on a leadership panel a few weeks ago, and there were a bunch of different people that were speaking on this panel, and it was a fun opportunity. And I love hearing other people's stories, which is part of the reason why we have this podcast, is so we can, have people share those stories. But every single person shared a pivotal moment within their timeline of when somebody believed in them.
Yeah.
And what a difference that made. It changed the trajectory of their entire career, their life. So I think that is really a fun theme to be pulled from the conversation. So Zeedia Media was born instantaneously, or what happened next?
So as I was thinking about selling my cafe, I started reaching out to a few of the other local businesses in the downtown where I had my cafe about social media marketing. That was the really hot thing then. And they needed help with it. And I was doing a pretty good job with my cafe. So I got a couple side clients already. And then when Kevin took me on, one of the biggest things was that he had started a book and wasn't ever able to finish it. So in a sense, I was his implementer in that particular situation. He, like most genius entrepreneurs, highly ADD, visionary, million ideas, but really hard to like get to focus and do stuff. So I helped him finish that book. We wrote it together, and that has been a pretty good foundation for my business. It's a lead magnet. It wasn't hard to do because he had started it, but I have found that the fact that I am a published author gives me credibility sometimes, regardless of the topic of the book. It's on brand archetypes and marketing, but I have been chosen for different panels and things like that based on the fact that I am a published author and other people aren't. So that's one advice that I would give to a lot of entrepreneurs and stuff. If you have an area of expertise that you have, even if it's a short book or something like that, that you can get published, it's really lends yourself as a subject matter expert for sure. But yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And what's interesting is the reason I met him was because my cafe was located next to the downtown Chamber of Commerce in Grand Ledge. And so he was on the board and he would come in there all the time. And one of the first things he did was like, Amy, you need to start talking to all these business owners at the Chamber of Commerce. And so I was like, yeah, for sure. And that was the first time as a business owner that I saw the importance of being around other business owners for sure and entrepreneurs in the chamber. And so that just kind of went from there. And I met the person who was running the chamber there and did some classes and then became involved in the Lansing chamber because that's, the bigger area. And then from there, I just figured I should, reach out to other chambers. And that's where I found you guys at the Howell chamber. So
awesome. I love that. I love chambers as connectors and conveners.
For sure.
That's so cool. So you landed at the Howell Chamber. You had a chance to connect with our Kevin here, right? Yeah. And tell me a little bit about you, sourcing us, choosing us, and then how you became connected with Kevin and what your experience was.
Sure. So I was recommended to Kevin by a previous student of his in a class that you took, or a cohort GBB that you took. I'm guessing at the end of it, you said, hey, let me know if there's any other entrepreneurs that would benefit from this class. And this person recommended me. And so you reached out and we had a great conversation, which was the first of many conversations I've had with you. And then you told me about this class that you had, this GBB, and that it was funded through grants through the Howell Chamber. And that was amazing to me because I wasn't really in a place in my business where I could spend a lot of money on this kind of thing that I really did need. And so the grant helped a lot. And that class it came along at a time where I really needed it too, because I've been in business, really been in business for my media company for about 8 years. And business had slowed down after COVID. I had a few really nice grants through COVID for some stuff that kept me going. And then that ended. And I was like, I don't know. I'm sure every entrepreneur comes at this point in their life sometimes where like, am I doing what I need to be doing? Is it, am I even good at what I'm doing? Yep. Like, what is going on? And
if you're not asking yourself those questions, are you even an entrepreneur?
That's universal.
Right.
Universal.
Yeah. So I was really contemplating at that point, like closing my business and going to work for somebody else. Or I had these fantasies of like, I could just go be a bartender a couple nights a week. That sounds fun. I was just like burnt out and didn't know what direction to go to. And I'd actually started applying for jobs online, which is, it's awful. It was so
Been
awful.
There.
Yeah. And my husband, who has a very successful business working, for somebody else, and he's very successful. He was like, maybe you just be happier working for somebody else. And then it's only like having one client and I'm like, the thought of going to an office every single day and punching in and punching out is like torture for me. I've always felt that way, having a strict schedule like that. And I guess it's one of the reasons why I feel like I'm built to be an entrepreneur, because I just don't want anyone else telling me what to do or where I have to be. But I felt like a jerk for saying that. Like most people go to work every day, 8 to 5. My husband does it. Everybody I know does it. Go to an office. It's like how the world works. And to me, that sounds awful. So I was trying, okay, I'll give it a try. And I was applying for jobs and I was like, not really getting past the first interview. And I was like, I am not even hireable at this point. And I was feeling really bad. Do I even know what I'm doing or talking about? And then, I met Kevin and we started talking about this class, and I was telling him this. And this is one of the conversations that I had in my life that really was a pivotal moment in my career. And Kevin said to me, I was telling him about I'm applying for these jobs and it's just not working. And he listened like he does very quietly. And then he said, well, that was a nice little experiment that you did on yourself, Amy. And I was like, okay. And he's like, well, what did you learn? And I was like, well, I kind of learned that I'm not hireable. And he's like, yes, exactly. You're not. And I was like, what the heck, Kevin? And then he's like, well, no, you're not, because you're an entrepreneur. He's like, so why don't you stop applying for jobs and get back to owning your business, because that's, really what you're supposed to be doing, and just stop all this other nonsense, basically is what he said. And it was what I needed to hear. I was like, you are right. So like, he gave me the permission to go back to being what I really needed to be. And that changed everything. And then I was in his class through the chamber. It was a cohort of other people learning different things. And it was absolutely what I needed to learn. And that class was it like 6 months long? So we had one class a month. Yep. And towards the end of that 6 months, I had revamped my business to be more consulting. So I wasn't doing the day-to-day implementing of all the things that was what was burning me out. Mm-hmm. And I was doing more consulting. I didn't know if it was going to work, because that was a different kind of mindset for me. Kevin walked me through that. And then as soon as I had made the decision to do this, 2 people called me out of the blue and asked for those services from me, like in one day. It was so weird. And I was like, okay, this is the universe. This is the universe telling me this is what I should be doing. And since then, my business, my money, my income has tripled.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And to me, one of the things that you said that is most compelling about your story is that, and you're doing stuff you really enjoy.
Yeah.
And that, because that's, and looking at where you were, and I think that was part of the conversation, which is to design it around who you are.
Right.
We're trained to not do that. And so I think that was a big part of the conversation. And so, it's amazing what happens when you steer the business in a way, in the direction where you're uniquely qualified and you love. And,
right. Well, and I think when you start a business, you have you have a passion, you know what you want to do, and then you have to learn all the businessy things, the taxes and the structure and if you have employees and all that kind of stuff, which anyone can learn that, right? It's not hard to learn that. But then it's easy to lose sight of why you did this and how you want to spend the majority of your days.
Yeah.
It is. And so what's really interesting for me in listening to you, just as you're sharing your story, is when I asked you about why marketing, right? And you were talking about Kevin, number one, who kind of was like that mentor and that person. You said that you wanted to do what he did, which was the teaching part, that consulting part. So somewhere along the journey that had shifted into some other things. And it sounds like you've kind of righted that ship a little bit and focused more on supporting people in that capacity.
Yeah. And I'm still working on it for sure. I don't have a solid implementer on my team. So I'm still doing some of the things that I, don't want to do necessarily all the time. I'm doing them less. And I shifted some of my long-term contracts with my clients. I said, hey, I've been doing these kinds of things for you, but I really think I would do better with these more consulting things with you. And 3 of my long-term clients took me up on it, paid me more money, and they're having better results now. And so, and then they found other people to do, like the scheduling of the social media and the things that I just didn't want to, the admin kind of stuff I didn't want to really be doing anymore. And that has freed me up to be way more creative, for sure, with my clients, which I think was the biggest impact I had on them, is that because I wasn't so bogged down in all the little tasks every day, I had the capacity to be more creative for my clients and their marketing.
So go ahead, Kevin.
Well, this is something I see all the time in terms of entrepreneurs. So I had an IT company. I grew up to 30 people, and I did this where it's like I became a business person, right? It's like the entrepreneur side of me went away, and I didn't focus on that. And I see people doing that all the time, and and there's a certain way that you have to do that for a period of time. But what people lose is like who they are, and don't get back to it. And there's a certain amount of guilt associated with that, or a sense of being insufficient and not good enough, because we don't like a lot of that stuff.
Right. Most of it.
Most of the, operating a business. And one of the things I tell people is like most entrepreneurs I talk to, they have this secret dream in the back of their mind, which is to have a business that runs itself.
Yeah.
And so you can do the creative stuff. And I mean, that's one of the benefits for me about as an EOS implementer, because I've got clients that do that, for the first time. Because when I had my business, it's like, I want to have a business that runs itself. And I came to the point where I believed that was bullshit. You couldn't do it. And then I watched people do it. And it's profound how it enables you to design the life that works well for you. And then you're just more compelling. And, one of the things that happens is we still got to do a lot of crap. But it's not as painful.
Right.
Right.
And one of the things that was a bit humbling for me to admit and learn through this is that some of these things that I am implementing for my clients or doing, there's probably other people that are better at it than that. Because where I really shine is the marketing concepts and the consulting and the brand consulting and educating people about brand. And I'm not necessarily super detail oriented. And you have to be in order to schedule all the social media at the right time on the right platforms with no typos and all those kinds of things. And it takes me, I have to triple and quadruple check everything. And then I have my clients approve everything before it goes out, because then if there's a typo, I'm like, wow, you approved it. I'm sorry there was a typo, but that kind of thing, which still there shouldn't be. But I know that there's other people that would be better at that than I am and serve my clients better. So I'm looking for that implementer right now. But that was something I had to realize too, is that, there are aspects of this business that other people probably could do better than me so that I could do these other things.
One of the things I work with people on is try to identify your superpower. It's like, what are you brilliant at? Because we all have some area where we're brilliant compared to other people.
Right.
And my thing is you need to design your business around your superpower. Because if you're not, you're leaving money on the table.
Right.
And so when you get to the point where, you're finding the place where you're really good, and you're like, no, I'm not that good in these other places. It's that's good. Don't stop doing those. And I think pretty consistently people find what you did, which is, people pay me more. Because
they do
because you're better at that. When you're best in class, you earn. You deserve more money. And you like the work more.
Right.
It's just really hard to get there.
It is.
It's really hard to figure that out.
And I don't know, getting there I think is a huge challenge, but I also think staying in that place can also be a challenge too. It's, as you're going through some of these things, once you're there, you're like, oh, aha. But then all of a sudden, all of this noise can creep in. And if you're not being very intentional about making sure that you have that front and center, it's very easy, I think, to slip backwards a little bit and get into the monotony of doing those things that you really don't like to do. Right. Or oh, I really want to take on this client. And I don't really love to do that, but I don't really have the person in place to do it. I'll do it just temporarily. And then next thing you know, it becomes a slippery slope. So I think being very intentional about making sure that stays at the forefront and making sure that you're surrounded by a network of people that can help remind you too. Because I also think in entrepreneurship, it can be a really challenging and sometimes lonely place.
Really lonely.
Isolating.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why the class that I took through the Howell Chamber with Kevin was great, because it was a cohort of other business owners, entrepreneurs, and a lot of us were in different stages of our business. Some were brand new, some were really well established and getting some tightening up some of their leadership stuff, and some of them were kind of in the middle like me. And talking about all those challenges, is validating, because we can reassure each other, we all really still don't know what we're doing. No matter how we act like we do, there's always areas we don't know what we're doing. And then we could process the information together. Kevin gives a lot of really good information. A lot of it's philosophical, kind of more about just what it really means to be an entrepreneur, not just nitty gritty. The class is not about here's how to prepare your taxes and here's how to set up an LLC. Right. It's not like that. It's more entrepreneur mindset and changing, really building that team and building that kind of business surrounded about, like you said, around what you want to do and getting out of that day-to-day grind. And so having that group of other people to talk with and process that information was really helpful, because I if I don't have people to kind of talk with my ideas about, they don't go anywhere. It just
you can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the, so entrepreneurship is a different phenomenon than business. And so entrepreneurship is the invention of the offer in front, figuring out how to communicate it to get people to understand it. And then how do you get people, because generally behind an entrepreneur there's a different way of seeing the problem. And so then you've got to get your customers to understand that and implement it. And all of that is a creative process. And a lot of the business kind of, so I got an MBA and it didn't help me in business and run a business. It would help me if I were a mid-level manager in a big company.
Work for somebody else.
Yeah. But, so when I created the GBB, I was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching. Mm-hmm. And so I'd sit across from somebody and they're in the process of inventing something, which is a painful process. And with two people looking at a creative problem, it just was never as powerful as when I got a room of 10 people. Mm-hmm. And there's an amazing thing that happens too. And I don't know whether you felt this, Amy, which was, it's one thing to be able to have people help you with what you're struggling with. But in a sense, it's almost more powerful when you get to be participating in everybody else's problems. Because you see, it's much easier to see what's up when you see somebody else doing it than when you're doing it. It's just, anyway.
Yes, I completely agree with that. It's validating, and it's also like there's times where I could offer some advice or from experiences, and then in my own mind, I'm just thinking, wow, I am kind of good at this. Like, I do know what I'm doing. I do have some experience. I do have something I can share with other people. And then I got that back from other people too. That is absolutely a huge benefit from being in a group like that.
Yeah, I think too, it's interesting because I think we shared it, this can be isolating, but having that validation I think is really key. I think I hear often from a lot of entrepreneurs like questioning, like, am I crazy?
Yes.
Like, is this?
And the answer is yes, you are. Right?
Yeah. Yes, and
right.
Yeah.
You're not alone in that.
Right.
People ask me, should I start a business? They ask me, and my answer is no. Don't. You should start a business if you can't not. You know what I mean? Because most of us, we're drawn, and it's like, it's sort of destiny in a way. And if you don't feel that, then you probably won't tolerate the huge pile of crap that you got to go through to make it work. And so it really is, there should be some, if there isn't this deep draw to it, kind of irrational, draw, then it's probably not going to work out. And if you can't take somebody telling you not to do it and still do it, so part of what I do is like I say no. Because if they really should, then they'll like disregard my no.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But if my no stops them, then it should stop them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's funny. I was just thinking, if you told me no, I would totally just do it.
Right.
Exactly. Like, I'll show you.
You're an entrepreneur. Yeah. You're an entrepreneur. That's how we roll, I
have been in the unique position of being a mentor myself in a couple different things. One through a specific program, and then others just by talking to people that are earlier in their journey than I am. And there's a couple of things I say to them. I'm like, well, first of all, you have to be really comfortable with uncertainty, mm-hmm. Because you never know how much money you're getting, or sometimes you don't get money and you don't know what's going to happen. And there are people that really need that paycheck every 2 weeks with the same amount of money so they can budget and do this and whatever. And one of my best friends is like that, and she's super successful, debt free, really, but I don't think she could ever deal with not having the same amount of money every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then also you have to be the kind of person that can have hard conversations, because at some point in your business, you're going to have to hire somebody, fire somebody, hire a contractor, talk to somebody else, talk to a client that's not happy, and have those hard conversations. And a lot of people can't, or they don't want to, or it's too stressful. That is a skill you can learn. You can get better at that and learn those kinds of things, but it has to be something that you're already okay with doing.
Yeah. Another thing along those lines is, you were talking earlier, you were saying you needed to have your own business because So you were looking at having a job and you couldn't go to the same place every
No,
and sort of
right.
But I find there's 3 drivers for people that start to their own business. Some of them, they want to make a lot of money. Those guys don't stick around. Those guys, that's not a lasting thing. The second kind is, I just don't want to have a boss. They don't, and that's real. And that works to a certain degree. But primarily when I see the most successful entrepreneurs, the reason they're doing it is because when they go back to talk to somebody, and I did the same thing where I'm like going interviewing, my thing with you is like, that's a great thing to do. I recommend people to do it. And it's like, no, go interview, because if you can tolerate that, good for you. But mostly what we learn is like, because I would do these interviews with people and they'd say, well, this is what we do. And I go like, you do that? And I'd be like, I have a perspective. And if somebody else is going to make me do it in a way that I don't believe in, I just can't do it. To me, this is the core of entrepreneurship.
Right.
You see the problem space differently, and you can't go out there and do this thing that doesn't work as well as you think that you could make it work.
Right.
Is that?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. In that crazy time that I was thinking I might go work for somebody else, one of my current clients was going to bring all of his marketing in-house. He thought, it's going to be more advantageous for me to hire a marketing person because I've got you doing this and this person doing this and this, that often happens with your marketing. You got one person doing your Google ads and somebody else doing this. And so I was like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think that could be really helpful. And we talked a lot about that. And pretty much he was going to have this person do everything except one thing that I didn't do. I don't do Google ads because I think it's important enough to have an expert on that. And I'm not. And so I was telling him all this and I was contemplating maybe I'd work for him instead, just have that one client, be seamless, because I've already been working with him. I really liked him. I liked his company. And he was telling me all the things that he wanted this person to do and what he thought he was going to pay them, which was decent. And I was like, well, you are looking for a unicorn, right? I mean, not one person really does all those things. And he asked me, would you be willing to go get Google certified for this job? And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't do it for a reason. It takes a special kind of person, again, detail oriented. And he's like, okay. And he's like, well, I'll get back to you. I'll think about it. If I'm going to hire this person. I'm like, okay, keep me in mind. We can keep talking. A year and a half later, he still hasn't hired that person. And he hasn't replaced me in doing all the things that I was doing either. Because I don't know why, but in that time, I'm like, yep, that's again, not going to do that. Cause I'm like,
It's not the right way.
It's a unicorn.
Right.
That person may not even exist.
Well, and I also told him, I said, all the things that you want this person to do isn't a full-time job. I could do this in like 20 hours a week. I don't have to hire me to do it, but it's not, you don't have to give me full-time salary. And he's like, no, it's going to be full-time. And I'm thinking, no, it's not. This isn't going to, right. So all signs pointed to the fact that wasn't what I was going to do. I still really respect him as a business owner. He's great. And somebody would be really lucky to work with him. He's a great guy, but this is another validation that, this isn't for me. And to your point, Kevin, I was like, I'm not going to do this the way he wants me to do it if he hires me.
We've talked a lot about entrepreneurship and your journey and kind of, and I'm going to circle back to this isolation piece of it because through the cohort, you were able to kind of find a group of individuals. And I think what we're looking to do is really take that a step further and build a community here in our region for entrepreneurs to feel connected, to feel a sense of belonging, to feel validated, to feel like they have this sounding board where they can really, it takes it this, that beyond that step of validation of more of that step of how can we, solve problems and support one another and just create this almost this movement, so to speak, of entrepreneurship support in our region. So we implemented and launched in partnership with Kevin and the Livingston Entrepreneurship Academy, the quarterly forums here for entrepreneurship. And I just wanted to have a moment to reflect on this because we had our first one launch in March. You guys were both there, obviously. But just share a little bit, what was your experience? I think I was really excited about the energy that we have. And I think that momentum is going to continue as we work to mobilize this group in the coming months. So just speak to that, if there's anything that was a good takeaway for you or, how you felt connected there or what, anything you want to share?
Sure. Can we go?
Go for it. Yeah.
So I was there, and I learned about it through Kevin and you, and just being part of I get all the marketing from the chamber. So I saw it, and there was a few people that were also there that was in my cohort with the GBB. So I was like, I can reconnect with them. I wasn't really sure what to expect, and I had never been to the venue that you guys had in, which was beautiful, by the way. Very cool.
Horse Feathers.
Yeah.
Horse Feathers Kitchen Cocktails
those are
Reserves.
great.
Shout out to them. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Great
It is
hosts.
perfect.
It was beautiful. And going into these things, I think, it's just going to kind of just be some networking, your general run-of-the-mill networking. And it wasn't. They had two really good presentations. One was by Kevin talking about entrepreneurship and introducing some of these ideas. And then there was another local, really successful business guy
David Yancho.
Yep. And his story was really compelling. I liked his presentation because he talked about his business a bit too, but he really tied it into just what it's like to be an entrepreneur. And then I thought Kevin had a really good questions for us to think about and discuss among the people at our tables, which was nice because I met a lot of new people that I hadn't met before, and the questions are really compelling that we talked about. And that was really cool. And then after all that, we went and had a cocktail, networking. I met a lot of really interesting people that 3 or 4 of them I have followed up with since then and met with them in person or, Zoom call or whatever. And, collaborated with them and that kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward to the next one. But what struck me the most about this is it was not your general just, hey, let's get a bunch of business owners in a room together to chat with each other. Because that's a lot of networking and a lot of there are chamber mixers and things like that, but it wasn't like that at all. It was structured. There was really compelling questions to think about. I thought about a lot of those stuff on my way home, and there were some challenging things for me that brought up. So I would encourage any business owner in the area to check the next one out because I got a lot of value out of it. I met some really good people, and it wasn't your general just run of the mill networking.
Awesome. Well, if we could, that's a drop the mic, right? That I think was the goal.
Right.
So go ahead.
Yeah, it's such a different problem space when you think about the distinction between, and we all have to do business. We all, small companies have to do both. You got to be an entrepreneur and a business person. You can't get away. But there's very little that serves sort of the entrepreneurship piece of it. And it's a very peculiar skill set. And most of us are just winging it, and we just have an intuition. We're all good improvisers. You put us into a situation and we improvise. And that's the key. And, there's so much that you can gain. I think, one of the big steps is where you go no, I'm different. And therefore it's okay that I don't have these other skills that other people, that 19 out of 20 people have.
Like accounting, for instance.
Yeah. We hate the numbers. We change our mind all the time. We live in a space of infinite possibilities, and we love that. And we make shit up, and we drive everybody else crazy with the entrepreneurship piece. But if we got really good at the integrator side of things, the execution side, then we would lose the thing that's really the brilliant piece that we bring, which is moving the world forward in this direction. And so one of the things that I've been asking people for years is, if you're the visionary, if you're the entrepreneur of the business, what are you doing to develop that side of you? Because there's very few resources.
Yeah.
And, so much of what we're doing in the hub and the academy is dialing in on that skill set. But, what we're working on is getting all of the people to come to the entrepreneurship forum. And really, if we can get people to come together and support one another in this broader geography, I think you can really make a difference from an entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship is at the front end of all business, and we got to get good at the business, but.
Right. And I think that this also goes back to something you said, Janelle, is the loneliness or the isolation of an entrepreneur. And anybody who's listening to this podcast who's a business owner, entrepreneur, I know you felt that. I know you know what I'm talking about, at least at some point in your journey of business owning, is that you're it. You're the boss. You're the decision maker. You don't have anybody, patting you on the back saying, hey, great job. You don't get raises. You don't get performance evaluations from people at work and all that stuff. You got to do it yourself. And that feeling of being alone. And there is nothing better to fight that than being in a room of other entrepreneurs and business owners. That to me is the only thing that fixes that problem.
Yeah.
And the Howell Chamber is offering that right now to you guys in a couple different ways. And it helps. It really works. And just as an example, we were sitting at the group at that event. And one of the things Kevin had asked you, talking about the personality traits or whatever, an entrepreneur. And one of them was, I forget the word is like walking the walk, talking the talk, right? Like in coherence, I think was maybe the word. He had a word. And so I was asking the people at my group, I'm like, I think this is one area where maybe I could improve, because if you right now were to go look at my business's social media accounts, you'd be like, this person does not know what they're doing, because I don't spend enough time on my own marketing, right? Because I'm doing everybody else's. And to be honest, and I would never tell a client this, but like I've got a lot of business right now. So it's not on the front of my mind to do marketing. Right. But I said to them, I said, let me ask you a question. Like, honestly, like, would that matter to you? Like if you were thinking about hiring me and you went and looked at my social and saw that I don't post all the time or whatever, would that deter you from hiring me? And I got some really good feedback at the table, and a couple of the people were like, probably. And I'm like, yeah, I knew it. I got to step that up, right? Like I got to worry about that. And I asked an honest question and I got honest feedback, and that was really helpful.
From someone that knows what they're talking about. Because one of the things that makes people really lonely in this is that everybody wants to give you advice as though they're experts.
Right.
And, everybody thinks they know how to, because it's hard. And so it's not that hard to look at somebody, what they're doing, and see flaws with it. And so everybody thinks they can tell you how to do it differently. And it's like, have you ever run a business? No. Well, I'm probably not going to listen to anything you have to say. And so, having somebody that's in the seat, it's like, okay, I'm going to listen to you.
Yeah, that's true.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. I think that is awesome. I'm like, maybe I would say no too.
Right. Well, but I knew it. Like I already knew it, but I needed somebody to tell me to like put me in action, and I'm taking care of it. Now everybody's going to go look and be like, maybe.
See, I have a different criteria for that, because most people that do marketing, we all suck at marketing in general.
Marketing's hard.
Marketing's hard.
Really
it's like the hardest. It's like the hardest thing in business. A lot of people that do marketing don't have enough clients, and that scares me. And so when you say, I don't really need, because when I'm working with business owners, and it's like they've got all the business they need. It's like, well, let's not put a lot of attention on marketing right now.
I get it.
It doesn't make any sense. So what is the biggest? I ask people all the time, what's your biggest strategic challenge? And if you've got enough clients right now, it's not marketing.
Well,
So I want to learn from you. It's like, no, I've got anybody that says, no, I've got all the customers I need. I mean, teach me.
Right. Well, I do and I don't, because currently I'm a solopreneur, right? I do have contractors that work with me, like a web builder, graphic designer, that kind of thing. But there's only me. And if I do want to scale, then and get more clients and more money, then I do have to build more of a team and do more stuff. So I'm not going to say I have all the business that I want. I currently have most of what I can handle on my own right now. Yeah. And that's why I'm working on getting the implementer and doing those kinds of things. Yeah. But part
of what you're doing right now, so part of the, you're the CEO, and the obligation is to constitute the business.
Oh yeah, that was so helpful.
To create it. And you have gone through a transformative period where the business has become a different thing.
Right.
And so, a year ago, you weren't in this place where it's, I got to grow. You're like, I got to get out of here.
I got to go be a bartender.
and now it means something different. Right. And so you're still in the place where you're reconstituting, it's a broad pivot for you. And so it is. And so, you're probably still envisioning what that looks like.
Right. Yes.
And I hope we can continue to challenge you to think about that as we move forward with our forums and you participate in those. I think that I wrote down a couple of things. You gave me some really cool ideas. I'm not going to share them here, but stay tuned. But I just think from an impact perspective, there's a lot to draw from this experience and what it means to entrepreneurship. And then I also think what's really exciting about this from the seat that I sit in, and I think probably the seat that you sit in too, is while there aren't a lot of resources available, like this is a lot of my everyday. This is Kevin's everyday. And I think what's so exciting about that from where I sit, and like I said, I'm speaking for you here, but is that we get to learn from you all the time. And that is something that is so cool. And I think that, you know, when I look at like what I do, that's so cup filling. And as we're talking about, you know, like looking at the things that we love to do and the things that we don't love to do, I mean, this is something that just speaks so immensely to me and the work that we're doing here at the Chamber. And it really is invigorating, and it lights us up here. So I think that that's really cool. I think, you know, we can make the case for this all day long, because one of the things that we sat down before we started recording this podcast, and we were talking about this Small Business Support Hub grant. And this is the grant that we secured in partnership with Ann Arbor Spark a few years ago. But since we've served 90 entrepreneurs through this grant, and, you know, as we step into the space of entrepreneurship and we take this really hard stance on it of, you know, this makes sense from an economic development standpoint, right? Yeah. We're investing in the backbone of our local economy, our regional economy. We know that small business drives us forward. So when we're investing in entrepreneurs, when we're investing in small business, it really is laying that strong foundation for a vital and vibrant economic ecosystem right here locally. And that's impactful. But I think taking that a step further and really driving into like, what is making the difference and what is making the impact? It's a story you just shared right here today.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, my relationship with the Howell Chamber started with that first GBB class that I took with Kevin. And then because I was dialed into your network, I was getting emails, and I came to a few classes that were taught here on AI and different things, met some more people. And I love AI, just full disclosure. And I've looked at a lot of classes, taken online classes, read a lot of stuff. And the one that I came here and took was one of the best ones. And I didn't necessarily learn a whole lot that I didn't already know, but what was valuable is to see what other businesses knew and didn't know about AI. That was really helpful to me to see that. Because it just gave me a perspective on like, where are we all at with this thing, right? But that was cool. And then I'm in, you know, Kevin's next class, the leadership class, and then that forum. But as a business owner, you have to network. You have to go to things as part of what you do. It's part of the ecosystem of being a business owner, but you also don't have infinite time. And so I am constantly reevaluating how I'm spending my networking time, what I'm doing, what I'm not, what groups are working for me, what groups aren't working for me. You know, what's a mixer versus a more intentional, you know, thing like that, like you guys are doing. And everything that I've done here has been, it's moved up the list on my priorities because it's been impactful for sure.
Well, I mean, this is one of the things that drew me to this. So we met, 3.5 years ago? 4 years ago.
I know, because I had just probably about 3.5 years, because I had just come back from maternity leave. My daughter just turned 4 last week. So that's how I keep track of my before kids.
But so I don't know whether everybody knows this about you, but you're an entrepreneur. And, you know, one of the things that when people equate entrepreneurship and business, they think that you're an entrepreneur because you started a business. And that's not it. I mean, it is a genetic predisposition. I mean, when you meet somebody, it's like, no, you've got the disease, you know, you've got the pathology. And I think this is important for everybody listening that maybe doesn't have their business. And the question is, what is your strength? Because the more that you can dial into your strength, and if you are an entrepreneur working in another business, there's still a way for you to be, you know, to execute and execute on your superpower. And so when I look at the programs through the Chamber, the fact that you are an entrepreneur is obvious. And I don't know, everybody can't see that necessarily because, I mean, there's a creative, you know, you live in infinite possibilities, and anybody that's around you, you know, knows that. And there's like a lot of stuff.
Our board knows that.
And so, I mean, I think there's, you know, just a couple of things about that, which is I think that, you know, that's a big part of what differentiates the Howell Chamber is the degree to which entrepreneurship is such a huge part of what you're supporting, even though you didn't necessarily have the labels for it or wouldn't have talked about it that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's been an evolution, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's been a fun journey to be on as we've evolved and really continued to hone in on, what is the superpower of not only ourselves, but our organization.
Yeah.
And I think that's been really fun. So we have this, we work with Kevin, and he is our implementer through EOS. And so we are really working on our VTO every quarter and annually. And our vision is to be a world-class organization. So really, rising above those things. And it's been fun. It's exciting. It's happening. We're getting closer. We're not there yet. But getting closer. So it's been fun. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that sentiment.
Yeah.
Amy, do you have anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that I've been able to be reinvigorated about my business and thinking about it in a different mindset, things like that. Kevin was asking me before we started, is there any books or people or authors or sources of information or things like that really speak to me? And I was like, well, I hesitate to say my real answer because it's weird, but I'm recommended books all the time. People, read this book, read that book. And I don't really read them because I don't have time, but I also think that a lot of the national bestseller books and things like that people read for businesses, they have generally 2 or 3, maybe 4 golden nuggets of information in them. And then the rest of the book is just reiterating that same information or giving examples. And so I will Google it. I will read a Cliff Notes version, or the person who recommended it to me, I'll be like, well, why? What's the thing in the book that I need to know? Because I'm not sure I'm going to go read this whole book. And so I think as an entrepreneur, it's important to stay on top of philosophies and things like that and understand what people are talking about. But I'm not so sure that don't get wrapped up in reading all the books everybody tells you to read. I think the most valuable thing that you can get is talking to other entrepreneurs and being in those rooms with people and sharing those ideas with somebody else. Because if I read a book, if I actually do read a book, it is not going to mean anything to me if I don't talk about it with somebody else. If it just sits in my brain or I forget about it and on to the next thing. But if I talk to another business owner, hey, have you done these things or implemented these things? And that is not going to happen unless you're in a room with other businesses, business owners. So as I'm going to just to your listeners, take advantage of all these groups and things that the chamber and different places have, because you're going to learn more about being an entrepreneur and business owners from other people than anything you're going to read.
And I think that there's another angle that I think it's important for people to understand how to become a better entrepreneur, because it's not what they think. And I see it over and over again. Because being a great entrepreneur and having a successful business because of that comes more from you doing the work of introspection and self-reflection about who you are. More so, the business orientation has this goal, I'm going to start a business, so I got to find a target market out there, and then I need to become what they want me to be. And that's death for an entrepreneur.
Sure.
One of the things I ask everybody, because my 5-year target is to have a transformative effect on 200 solopreneurs. And so at the end of every GBB, I ask them, was this a transformative experience for you? Did your business, did your opportunities qualitatively shift? And so I ask this every time. I think in your class it was 7 out of 9, which and I'm always telling them, don't lie to me. Don't be nice. And so that transformative experience a lot of time comes because you get a deeper understanding of who you are and how to design the business so it fits you. And it's counterintuitive because we're taught to not do that. Mm-hmm. We're taught to suck it up and do what you're supposed to do. And it feels selfish to organize the business around who you love to be with. People talk about target market. It's screw, I don't like that language. It's who do you love to be with? Who's your dream customer? That's how you think of your target market, not some MBA analysis of what the opening is in the marketplace, because you don't need many of them as a solopreneur. And so I just think that, I think that's what you went through.
Yeah.
And of who am I? And being okay with that. right? It's really hard. We're trained to not do that.
Yeah. Well, you did give me the permission I needed, because I was like, yeah, I'm not bad crazy. I'm good crazy, because we are all a little bit crazy, but it gave me permission to acknowledge that this is how I think, this is how I operate, and this is why, and that's a good thing. You know? Yeah. I definitely need that. Yeah. It was absolutely transformative for sure.
Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. Thanks for being our celebrity co-host today, Kevin. And just sharing some perspectives, some thoughts. Amy, thanks for digging deep and sharing some pieces of your journey with us. But we look forward to continuing this conversation at the next quarterly forum. So I would encourage everybody to check that out. The next one's coming up on June 2nd. And until next time, we'll catch you on the Howell Business Beat. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.